Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. For those of you who are here for the first time, my name is Michael, and I am the creator of the biggest 3D earthquake simulation channel on YouTube, and also arguably in the world. Today I'm going to teach you how to create a simple earthquake simulation for yourself, and trust me, it is a lot easier than what you think. This will be both entertaining and educational because I am giving you a chance to become a small scientist with your own mindset who explores physics in a very interactive and creative way. I'm telling you this as a friend. Learning should always come from the inside and should always be a fun process. I believe that all the successful people that you see nowadays got where they are because whatever they were doing was very, very fun to them. Without further ado, here's all the steps that you need to follow in order to create your first earthquake simulation. Step number 1. You need to download an older version of Blender 3D. In order to facilitate the process, I have created a Google Drive folder with the files that you need to download, and I have also attached a direct link in the description below. Blender 3D is an open source program, which means that it is free to use by anyone. It's important to know that it does not require any installation. You simply need to download the folder from my Google Drive account and move it to your desktop or anywhere else that is convenient for you. This Blender folder also contains a special code that simulates physical reality to a very high degree. This was created by two German researchers, Kai Kostack and Martin Felke, in collaboration with Laurea University of Applied Sciences in Finland. This code involves realistic material properties and constraints in a structure, such as compression, tensile, shear, plastic deformation, and bending forces. I strongly suggest that you check their YouTube channel linked below if you would like to see the full potential of this program. Okay, so now let's open the file that you just downloaded, then double-click on Blender. It has this orange circle icon. And once you open it, you should be getting this. It looks a lot, I know. And what you have to do first is go click on File, and then click on User Preferences. And now we're going to adjust the interface according to your needs. So for the purpose of this video, I'm just gonna oversize it so that you can see exactly what is going on and what I press. Okay, I'm gonna leave it at 184. Perfect. Okay, so I think the first thing you need to understand is how to move in this 3D space. So basically you're going to use the middle button of your mouse, so the scroll button, and you're gonna click it and then you can just drag it around. That's gonna change the angle of the perspective. And let's say you want to move left or right. What you have to do is do the same thing. So hit the middle button of your mouse and also press the shift button. So shift and the middle button of your mouse. And then you can see that now instead of shifting the angle, you are moving up or down, left or right. If you want to zoom in, you could just scroll in or scroll out. Or there's a second option. You can use the control button and the middle button of your mouse to go in or out. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is to actually delete everything that is in the scene. For this, you have to press the A button, and that is basically going to select everything that you have in the scene. And you can see that it's selected because it's highlighted in this orange color. So I'm going to hit the A button again, and then I'm going to hit delete and enter, or just click on delete. Okay, so now we have a clear scene. There's nothing in the scene. As you can see over here, it says that there's no objects or lamps or anything. The first thing that we have to add to our scene is the ground. So basically we have to create an object that represents the ground, or let's call it a foundation. In order to do that, we need to insert a new object. So for that, we have to go to the bottom left corner, click on Object. Click on Add, and then Mesh, and then Cube, and then hit the cube. And we have added a cube, a default cube. Again, I hope you will get to familiarize yourself with how to move in the scene, in the 3D space. Now, I am going to hit the N key, and this is going to add more options, basically all the properties of the object, the size, the scale, and so forth. We're going to go to Dimensions, and this is the X dimension, the Y dimension, and the Z dimension. And you can see all of these displayed with different arrows on the screen. So Z is for the blue one, Y is for the green one, and X is for the red one. So for X, I'm just gonna make it 1 meter tall. This is in meters. You can change it to inches, I think, but you have to go in like settings and user preferences. But I'm just going to keep it in meters. I'm more familiar with that. And for X, I usually make it 1,000 meters, and then same for the Y axis. And now you can see that it's a very large object. It's basically 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to move this tab over here so that I can see everything that I have. So this is basically the scene and everything that is contained in it. I'm going to change the name of this cube, and I'm going to call it Foundation. And this is going to be very important later on when we create the earthquake simulation. So make sure that it's called Foundation. Next, I'm going to go in the Properties tab, and there's a lot of properties over here. There's the scene properties, world properties, the object properties, and we are going to click on this orange cube, and we're going to go to groups over here, and we're going to have to create 2 groups. The first one is going to be called Rigid Body World. Make sure that you spell it the same way and have the R, B, and W capitalized. It's very important. And then hit enter. And then I'm going to create a new group, and this is going to be called Foundation. Oh, sorry. I meant to click here. So click on the the plus button, and now you can see the 2 groups, and this one is going to be called Foundation. Perfect. The other thing that we have to do is make sure that the foundation is selected, and you know if it's selected if it is highlighted in the green or orange color. And now that it is selected, you have to hit the tab key and then hit U and then click on the Smart UV project. So basically this is going to allow Blender to create a texture for the foundation or for any object. And now you can hit the tab key again, and it's going to exit the edit mode. So basically for each object, if you hit the tab key, you enter the edit mode. I know it's very complicated. It sounds like there's a lot of things, but I'm just going to show you the basics of what you need. Okay, so now that it's deselected, we go to this tab, which is the material tab. We're going to hit new to create a new material. We're going to call this again foundation. I think I misspelled it. Foundation. And then click on the next tab and create a new texture and call this one the same way, foundation. I'm going to go back to the material properties and I'm going to scroll down, and this is the color that the object is going to have. I'm going to click here and let's make it like a darker gray. That's fine. We're not going to worry about adding a texture right now, but if you want to add any kind of texture, basically you go here on the texture tab and scroll down to, let's say, here, image. And if you click on open, you can add any kind of image that you have on your computer, and basically Blender is going to make that a texture. Now that we have the foundation created, and now that it belongs in these two groups, we can go ahead and create what I would call a bedrock layer. So basically, if you are going to build any structure, you would I think, I don't know why, but I prefer to put it on some other objects. I would not connect it. I would not connect the structure straight to the foundation. I would like to have a in-between layer. So for that reason, I am going to add a new object. So I'm going to click on Add, Mesh. I'm going to add another cube. I'm going to zoom in. And now it's very important that these two objects, that this cube is stacked on top of the foundation. So it's basically sitting on the foundation. As you can see, it's kind of going through the foundation. So in order to lift it up, you will have to click on the Z-axis and just drag it up, and that's going to move the object. And now you have to go here, click on this little button and then select the face option, and then also click on this little magnet which says snap during transform. So basically, if I lower this arrow, this Z-axis right now, if I'm going to lower it down, it's going to snap to the face, to the first face of this foundation or object. So you see, when I dragged it down, it automatically connected it to the foundation. Perfect. Now I'm going to make this only 1 meter tall. So I'm gonna click here, press 1, then enter. I'm going to drag this down again so that it's laying on top of the foundation. And now we have to realize that this cube that we added, we didn't add any materials to it, or it doesn't belong in any category yet, as you can see over here. So I'm going to click tab again. That's going to enter edit mode, as you can see it here. Then hit the U key, Smart UV Project. Then hit OK. And now hit tab again. And I'm here in the material properties. I'm going to add it to rigid body world. So as you can see, the group is already present here. I'm going to add it to that. And then I'm going to create a new group, which is going to be called Bedrock. I just like to call it that way. But honestly, you can name these groups the way you want. It really doesn't matter. Okay, so this is going to be called Bedrock. And now, let's go to the material properties and scroll up. I'm going to add a new material, call this Bedrock. I'm going to do the same for texture. I'm going to hit new, call it Bedrock, and let's say the color that I want to choose for this is going to be a pinkish, kind of like a brick color, I guess. That's fine. Hit, oh, I don't know what I've done. Just hit enter. There you go. And now that we have this first object, I am going to multiply this object. I'm just gonna copy paste it several times. So for that, make sure that it's selected. And before we do this, what I like to use when I edit and multiply these objects, I will click here and make sure that the pivot point is set on the 3D cursor. Perfect. And also, later on, we're going to change the viewport shading. So the viewport is basically what you see right here, like the 3D image. This is the viewport. Later on, we're going to click here and change to material. If we change it right now, it's going to be dark because there's no lighting, there's no lamps in the scene. But we will deal with that later. I'm going to click on solid. So here in solid. And now I'm going to go in the tool option. So honestly, let me make this a little bit bigger so that you can see everything that's going on. Okay, I'm going to make it max. Perfect. So I make sure that this object is selected, and then I hit duplicate. And after you hit duplicate, you can see that the object is basically following your cursor wherever you move it. You can select X, Y, or Z. So basically, if I hit the X key right now, it's only going to move the object along the X axis. If, let's say, I hit Y, it's going to move the object along the Y axis and so forth. And Z, you see, for up or down. So I'm going to go back to Y. I'm going to put it here. And now I am going to move the green arrow until it meets this face, right? The face of this object. And when I get the cursor above that face, it's going to stick the object to it, to the other object. Okay. I release the click, and now I'm going to select both of these. I'm going to repeat the operation. I'm going to hit duplicate and then Y, hit the Y key. I'm going to put it somewhere here in the outside area. I'm going to get close. I'm going to pull the green arrow to stick the objects together, and I'm going to repeat the process one more time. And since each box is 2 by 2 meters, I think this is a pretty good size to have, having in mind that there's going to be a structure on top of it. I'm going to select all of these, hit duplicate again, And this time I'm going to use the x-axis to multiply the objects. I'll put here. And let's select these ones again. Duplicate. Hit X again. Stick it to the other ones. Duplicate again. Hit the X. And let's stick it one more time. I guess we can do it one more time. Perfect. So now we have what we call, or what I call, the bedrock. So this is going to be the object the objects, right? We're going to have the structure on top of this. So now that we have these objects in place, I'm going to hit the A button, and that's going to deselect everything that I have. One thing that I like to use when I build my models is, so you scroll down here until you get to shading, and I like to use the Ambient Occlusion option. So as you can see, when I select this option, there's a little shadow around my objects. It makes it look a little bit more realistic. And for strength, I usually use number 3, distance, let's say 2, and for samples, I'm gonna use 100. Nice. Okay. So let's see what we're going to build. We're just going to build something basic, right? So let's say that I'm going to add some concrete pillars, the ceiling, and then maybe repeat that process, copy the first floor, and then add another one and maybe a third one, and then we will simulate a small earthquake. Okay, we're going to add one more object. Click on Add, Mesh, Cube. You can see that it appeared over here, but don't worry, there's nothing wrong about it. We just need to lift it up. Now the problem is, if you have this option enabled, it's going to just stick to the top surface of this, so you don't want that. Hit the magnet again, and now you can drag it up, and then hit the magnet again, and then you can drag it down, and now it's going to be stacked on top of the other objects, on top of the bedrock. Now, if you have a little bit of knowledge in terms of architecture and how buildings are supposed to be built, a typical pillar or a column, let's say, is about, let's say, 60 centimeters or 80 centimeters. It really depends on the height of the building and how tall the building is. But for the purpose of this video, I am just going to make this column 60 by 60 centimeters. So that's going to be 0.6 by 0.6. And the typical height of a column is about 3 meters. So I'm going to make it higher. And now because I made it higher, you can see that the object penetrated the bedrock underneath. So we have to lift this up again. So I need to hit this magnet again, bring it up, hit the magnet again. I'm using this magnet so many times when I build my models. Okay, so now we have the first pillar. And what we have to do is go back to this tab the object properties, and we're going to make sure that this object belongs to the rigid body world group. And then we're going to add a new group. This is going to be called, let's say, concrete column. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to duplicate this one using the x-axis, and let's make this 5 meters long. That's actually a lot. Let's make it 4 meters. And I think I used the wrong axis, sorry. So it's going to be 0.6, and it's going to be 4. Oh, oops, I was changing the wrong property, so I'm gonna, this is going to be 4, and this is going to be 0.6. There you go. So now they have the same width, and I'm going to bring this wall to the column. We're not going to use this wall in the simulation. I'm just using it for I'm just using it as a ruler. Honestly, I'm going to copy this one and this one again. So I'm going to select both objects. I'm going to hit duplicate, hit the X key. I'm going to bring these closer together. And then I'm just going to use this one more time. Just the middle object, the column that we need. And I'm gonna drag it here. And now I'm going to use this. I'm gonna duplicate them on the y-axis, and I'm just gonna use my eye. I don't really need an exact measurement, though all my models have exact measurements, and I make sure that they make sense realistically. But for the purpose of this video, I am just going to make this faster for you. I don't want to keep you too long on this tutorial. Okay, so we have that. And now I'm going to actually move these walls. So I'm going to select these two walls. I'm going to move them, let's say, over here. Going to make sure they are properly aligned. And instead of being 60 centimeters, I'm going to make them 30 centimeters. That's like the size of a typical wall. I'm going to select the other one and make this 30 centimeters as well. And we have the footprint of the first floor. And now I'm going to have to add a the ceiling. Let's add the ceiling. So what I'm going to do is I can just select one of these objects. I'm going to unselect the magnet, hit duplicate, hit the Z key, and the typical height for a ceiling is about 30 centimeters. So I'm going to make it 30 centimeters tall. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this larger. So it's probably going to be let's say 10 meters. Maybe more, 12 meters by 8. Let's see what happens. Need to bring it. I'm gonna use the red one. Oh, I have to select the magnet again. I'm gonna use the red arrow and then the blue one, and we can see that it's not long enough. So basically each time you drag one of these arrows to a face, it's going to bring it exactly to those coordinates. See? The green one over here, and then the red one over here. Okay, so I think that we need 2 more meters, so I'm gonna make this 10 meters. Yeah, that's about right. And we probably need 1 more meter over here, so 13. Let's see what happens. Perfect. Yeah, it looks right. So now what I'm going to do, I have to make sure that, I mean, I've sent to you the file that I have, so I'm not sure if you're going to have this object, I mean this option over here, cell fracture. In case you don't see it in your Blender, you can just go on File, User Preferences, go to the Add-ons option, and over here in the search box, just search for cell fracture, and it's going to appear over here. Make sure it's selected so that you can use it. You can click here to select it if you need. I'm going to exit. So I have the cell fracture enabled over here. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna make this larger. I'm gonna hit the All Scenes tab over here. Go and select groups. So basically now we can see all the groups that we have in our 3D scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select Bedrock. Oh, actually no, we don't need Bedrock. I'm going to select the concrete column. Okay, so one thing that I realized is that we didn't create a group for the ceiling. So basically the ceiling that we have created is in the same category as the concrete columns. So I'm just going to select the ceiling, and I'm going to go here, the object properties. I'm going to remove it from the concrete column group. I'm going to create a new group by hitting the plus key, and I'm going to call this ceiling. And now I am going to go here where the groups are. I'm going to select ceiling. Then I'm going to hold the shift button and also select the concrete column by clicking the left mouse button. So once again, hitting here, ceiling, and then also the concrete column. And now that we have all of these objects selected, I'm going to go to the cell fracture. I'm going to hit the option, and let's see, there's a lot of options here. I'm going to just let everything be as is over here. Basically, the source limit tells you, tells the computer how many objects you want to fracture. The noise tells the program how random the size should be. So if I want to simulate concrete, I usually use, let's say 0.6. So I'm going to make 0.6 in terms of noise. I'm going to let the scale be as is. This is So I'm not going to change anything over here. For mesh data, I'm going to only have selected the first and the fourth option. So I'm going to deselect the second, the third, and the last one. So the first and the fourth. I don't want the objects to be recentered, so I'm gonna deselect this. And also I can let this be on the next layer. So let me see if is there anything else I need to change. No, so that's the only thing. We need to change the noise to 0.6, and then for mesh data, the first and the fourth. And then I'm going to hit OK. And as you can see, the computer has fractured the objects, but you're not going to be able to see them on this level. You can only see them if you click over here. So this is the section where you change the visible layers. So if I go to the second, we can see all our objects here, and they're also fractured. Perfect. What I have to do right now is I need to select, let's see where that option was. I think it was object. There you go. So now that all of them are selected, I'm going to hit Object, Transform, and I'm going to click Transform Origin to Center of Mass or Volume. And as you can see, all these little dots are now corresponding to the center of these objects. Perfect. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control-C. So that's basically copying the objects. And you have the confirmation over here that the objects were copied. So Control-C, then go back to this layer. Make sure that you select the ceiling and the concrete columns again. Hit Delete. Delete them, and then hit Control-V. So we're basically copy-pasting the objects onto our first layer, the layer that we are using. And we have all of them, all the objects that are fractured over here. And now you can select oh, actually I've made a mistake. Sorry about this. So we have to as you can see, the groups have disappeared over here. So I was supposed to do this before. Never mind. So okay, so let's say we have all of them selected. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to hit Object, Group, create a new group, and all of these are going to be inserted in the concrete column group. And then also we need to add them onto the rigid body world. So while having them selected, you have to select a new object that already is in the group that we need. So I'm going to select this object, and now I'm going to go to Object, Group, and add selected to the active group. And we don't need all groups, we just need the rigid body world. So now if I select this object, we can see that it belongs to the concrete column group and also to the rigid body world, and same for all the other ones. So technically I'm supposed to have this these objects into the ceiling category. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is select all of them. Okay, they are selected, and we're going to hit Object, Group, Remove Selected from Active Group, and we're going to remove them from the concrete column, and we're going to add them to a new group. So Group, hit Object, Group, create new group, and this is going to be the ceiling. Perfect. So now we have 5 groups. We have the bedrock, we have the ceiling, we have the foundation, we have the concrete columns, and the rigid body world. So as you can see, all the objects that you are building in your simulation, they should all be in this group, in the rigid body world group. Otherwise, the simulation is not going to work. So now that we have this, I'm going to show you some magic. I am going to just select the ceiling and the concrete column. I'm going to make sure that the magnet is not selected. I'm going to hit duplicate. Then I'm going to hit the Z key. I'm going to move it up a little bit. Hit the magnet again, and we're going to bring it down. And we're going to repeat this process a couple more times. I'm going to go here to the right, hit ceiling, select the concrete column, and I'm going to unselect the magnet, then hit duplicate, the Z key. I'm going to go up, hit the magnet again, and then as you can see, wherever I click, all the arrows are following my cursor, so I can use it as I need. I'm going to bring it down now. So we have 4 floors. And let's just do it one more time. I'm going to select ceiling, concrete column. I'm going to unselect the magnet, then hit duplicate, hit the Z key, go up, click, and then hit the magnet, and we're going to bring it down. So now I'm going to hit the A key to deselect everything, and we have our structure, which is made out of concrete, and there's going to be 2 different kinds of concrete. So the columns are going to be more sturdy than the ceiling. But for that, we have to use the bullet constraints builder, which basically tells the program what kind of materials we're using and what kind of physics we should apply to these objects. So let's do something interesting first. I'm going to add a lamp. So add lamp and point, and let's drag it a little bit to the left, and then I'm gonna duplicate it on the y-axis. I'm gonna put it here. Then let's select these 2 lamps again and put them in the back of the building over here. Perfect. And now I am going to go here, which it's basically the method to display the objects in the 3D view, and I'm going to hit material, and we can see that we see the lights and reflections. I'm going to actually copy the lights one more time. Copy paste them a little bit higher up. Duplicate Z. And you can see that the lights are basically showed in real time. Gonna put it here. Perfect. And now, since we don't need to see these in our scene, we're going to go to groups. I'm gonna select this, go to all scenes, and scroll down. Here's all the objects that we have in our scene. And I'm going to hit the eye. Hit the eye. I'm going to deselect the eye or the eyes so that we don't see the lights. We don't see this. It looks awful. I don't know. We don't need it. Okay, all good. So now that we have our building, what we need to do is go to the BCB tab. And again, in case you don't see it over here, you click on File, User Preferences, and over here, just type for BCB or Bullet Constraints. There you go. Animation Bullet Constraints Builder. Perfect. So here's a couple of options, and this is very important for running the earthquake simulation. What we have to do is let's take this one step at a time. So for pre-processing tools, make sure that you have the run on automatic mode selected. Then we don't need this option. Come on, there you go. So deselect this one, deselect the third one as well, deselect separate loose, deselect apply all modifiers, deselect center model, deselect separate loose. We don't need to use this option. Come on, unselected. And then we need the enable rigid bodies. This is very important. We don't need intersection removal. We need the fixed foundation. So this is going to be our foundation. So for object name, you can see that it's called foundation. It corresponds to the one that we have, which means that we can deselect this one. We don't need another foundation. For ground motion, we will create a artificial ground motion. So we have to select this one. Basically, we're telling the computer that we need an artificial earthquake. Or you can upload a CSV file, which it's a very complicated file that tells the software exactly how the ground moves in a specific earthquake, and that's how you can sometimes access information online on specific websites, and you can download information in regards to specific earthquakes that happened in the past, like the 2011 9.1 quake in Japan, or the Northridge earthquake, and so forth. But for this simulation, we're just going to create a artificial earthquake motion. And it took me a while to figure out these settings over here. As you can see, the first one is amplitude. The second one is frequency, duration, and then random seed. So I am going to create a list for you that tells you exactly the intensity of a earthquake. I'm going to add it in the YouTube description later. For now, let's just use the amplitude of 0.2, or actually 0.3. The frequency, we're going to set it to 1.5. random seed, this is going to be 0.3. And for duration, we're going to set for 20, let's say 25 seconds. So this would be the equivalent of a about 7 point something earthquake, maybe 7.3. And the structure would basically be on top of the epicenter. So when I say that we're simulating a 7.3 earthquake, that means that we are literally on top of where the fault ruptures. So these settings also correspond to a very shallow earthquake, maybe 10 to 20 kilometers, because of the frequency. So if you have lower frequency, then that means that the G-force is going to be less. So that's typical for, let's say, if you are further away from the epicenter, the waves, the seismic waves, are not as powerful. They still move the Earth a lot, but they don't have a high frequency. Okay, and then we're going to go to the next settings. We're going to go to global settings. For my computer, I realized that I can run 200 steps per second and 100 solver iterations. So basically, this is telling the program how many, like the number of simulation steps taken per second. So higher values are more accurate but slower and can also be more unstable. And the solver iterations is the number of constrained solver iterations per simulation step. And the constraints are basically the connections that the objects have between them. Now we have to have the automatic mode enabled. It's very important. And then let's scroll down. The warm-up period, basically, this tells the software that the first 20 frames, there's not going to be any breakage in the connections. Because the moment you run the simulation, the gravity is going to pull the building down, and you don't want any broken connections until the building stabilizes itself. So let's just set it to 40. I think it's a better number. So that's about 1.5 seconds. For advanced global settings, I am going to make sure that the lower strength priority is not enabled, and making sure that accurate contact area calculation is enabled. I will explain in a different tutorial the differences between lower strength, having this enabled, and not having enabled, but it's not very important right now. Okay, now, this is very, very important, and this is where I think I've spent about a month trying to figure out how this works, because I didn't find any specific instructions on this online. For the element group list, we have to have the groups that we have on our right. So the first one is Bedrock. I'm going to hit the plus button, and we have all the available presets, right? There's a lot of presets, but honestly, we can create an infinity of options. So for Bedrock, I'm going to be using RC columns. And now for the element group selector, I'm going to name this Bedrock. So this over here should be the same as this over here. And you know that it's correct when, if you hit this button, it's going to select whatever is Bedrock. And now we're going to go to the element group settings and make sure that we the breaking threshold multiplier, I usually put it a very high number. Let's say 9,999, because we don't want the bedrock to break. And for advanced element group settings, I am going to select this the rescale factor to be 1. So we don't want any rescaling. I'm going to I'm just reading the options here and everything's fine. I don't think you need to change anything else. So make sure rescale factor is set to 1, and then as you can see, you can change so many settings in this program. You have the breaking threshold in Newton per what is this? 1 second. I don't think it's meters squared. I think it's per millimeter square. Yeah, I think it's millimeter square. So we have the compressive force, the tensile force, the shear force, bend force, and plastic force. And obviously we don't have any plastic force because this is concrete. So you would have this for steel, for example. But since this is concrete, we don't have it. Okay, it looks good. We're going to create the second element. This is going to be ceiling. And for ceiling, we are just going to use RC slabs. So that's reinforced slabs. And then I'm going to call this ceiling. Hit enter. When I hit this, it's going to select the objects corresponding to the group. So this is ceiling. And now, I have to rescale it. So we're putting it back to 1, and we're just going to leave it for just 1, the breaking threshold multiplier. So basically this is the standard, the default multiplier, just default forces, right? If you have a skyscraper, obviously this number is going to be higher, but from what I noticed, if I have a structure that is about 15 to 20 stories high, then this is fine if I just leave it for 1. If I go more than 20 stories, then I have to put it to 1.5 or 2, or even more, depends. Density is going to be 2,400 kilograms per meter cube. So just let it, just the default value. Okay, so we have the ceiling. Now we need to create a group for foundation. And now for foundation, instead of using concrete or any of the other categories, we're going to use base, which is passive and indestructible. And this is very important. The base, the foundation, should always be indestructible. And we're going to call it foundation. Enter. We're almost there. It's a longer tutorial than I thought, but it's very important that I explain to you everything in detail. So foundation, and when we click, we see that it's selected. And now I will make sure that we change the rescale factor to 1. Everything else is fine. Actually, the friction, we can set it to 100. Because we don't want the bedrock to start moving in case it breaks, but it's not going to break because it's set to a 9,000 multiplier, which is a lot. So set the friction to 100, and we are going to go to create the concrete column category. So for concrete columns, we're going to use the reinforced columns and make sure that it corresponds to our group name, concrete column. And as you can see, when I hit this button, it selects the group name. Perfect. And we're going to rescale it to 1. And then there's one more thing that we need to do. We have to select this option, disable collisions between initially connected elements of this element group permanently. So this basically tells the program that there shouldn't be any collisions between elements of the same group. Or, I mean, the elements that are connected, right? So make sure that this option is enabled, and also not just for the concrete column, but also for ceiling. So let's go previous, hit the previous, and we're at the ceiling category, and make sure that for ceiling we also have disable collisions permanently between initially connected elements. And this better simulates the behavior of concrete, because sometimes, you know, concrete can break into smaller pieces, and you don't want those pieces to be interfering. Like, you don't want to get this Jenga effect, right, where you have weird balances. Okay, so now that we have that enabled, I think that we are done with this section. You don't have to do anything with the post-processing tools. I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. And what we're going to do right now is something very important. Before you save the file, make sure that you hit this button over here, which stores the actual config data in current scene. Click here and here, and so both here and under the global settings. And then we're going to save this file and just call it tutorial. And now everything that we have set is embedded in the file. Now I am going to hit the N button and get rid of the material properties. I'm gonna hit A to deselect everything. And here we have to set how long the simulation is going to be. And let's say it, if the earthquake is going to be 25 seconds, we probably need, let me think. Let's just put it 1000 frames, because we can always end the simulation whenever we want. So start 1, end 1000. And something very important, make sure that you have the just click on window, and then make sure that you have the toggle system console, so that you can see what the software is doing when it's creating the simulation, because some simulations take a lot of time, and you want to make sure that you see that the program is still working and it's not stuck or stuff like that. So let me think what else we need to do before we run the simulation. Everything here is set. We have the earthquake details. We have Everything looks okay. And in order to basically bake the physics into this simulation, which means that you're letting the software calculate all the connections, all the constraints, all the breaking points of materials and stuff like that, and the gravity, density, all the forces, etc., etc. Make sure that before you hit the build FM button, so this basically makes the simulation start. Make sure that you have everything selected in the scene. So you're gonna hit, just make it a little bit bigger. So make sure that you have everything selected. So I'm gonna press the A key. Everything is selected. And now we are going to press the build FM. So this is basically fracture modifier. We're not using the fracture modifier, but this is kind of inbuilt in the software so that you can run bigger simulations with like a bigger number of a larger number of objects. So I'm going to hit the build FM button and see what happens. And you can see that it is loading, and it will probably take some time. There are currently 881 objects in the scene, and let's see how fast this is running. Actually, it's pretty running. It's running pretty fast. So I see that the software already calculated 40 frames. It's pretty fast. I have a good computer, so. So at this point, I feel like I can end the simulation. So for that, I can hit the escape button. As you can see, there's 500 frames already calculated, and the total should be 1,000. But I feel like I can end it earlier. I'm gonna hit the escape button, and then that basically ended the simulation. So now what we have to do is I'm gonna click on the rigid body world. I'm gonna click on the plus button, and for ground motion I have to disable, we don't need to see it, so I'm gonna disable that. I'm gonna hit A, and now if we play the simulation using the play button, we can see the results. Oh, let me go from the beginning. There you go. So now, if you would like to get a video out of this, so you can explore everything that happened afterwards, or you can explore at any time of the simulation, right? You can click on the 220th frame, and you can move around and see where each object is. You can see where it broke. You can skip ahead if you want, over here, or here. I think it's a very useful tool to just do research on your own and see how materials behave, or how a specific structure behaves in a earthquake. Okay, so what we have to do right now is, let me go from the beginning. Let me show you how you can export this as a video file. So for this, you're going to go to the render properties. So click on this little camera, and here you can set the resolution that you need for your video. Here it is set to 1920 by 1080. Make sure that the resolution is 100% and not just 50%. Here, the frame range, I think my simulation ended somewhere around, I don't know, let's put it 600 frames. So it's gonna end at 600 frames. The frame rate, you can let it set to 25 frames per second. I usually go to 30 frames per second, but obviously that's going to change the visual aspects of the simulation. So it might look like the earthquake is stronger than it is, but still the physics are calculated to 25 frames per second. And then make sure that here you select this button so that you change the location where you want the video to be saved. Make sure that instead of PNG, you have set it to FFmpeg video. And let's click it. And then go to encoding. The presets, hit this button over here and set it to MPG4. This codec is the most recommended, and I think most computers have it. So make sure you're set to H264. Output quality, I usually go for perceptually lossless, and you could go, I guess, fast, faster, or very fast. I guess faster. It doesn't matter that much. And so when you are done with these settings, make sure that we have to find a specific angle that works for your simulation. Let's say we want this kind of angle from here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to find this camera over here. When we click on this camera over here, we basically see how we see a preview of our video. So this is the angle, this is the perspective. if we're not satisfied with this, you click here on the left, and we go back to the 3D view, and let's say we adjust it. Let's say we zoom in a little bit more, and let's see where we are now. It's pretty good. Okay, so now that I'm satisfied with this, I go back to the 3D view, and instead of clicking on the camera, I click on the OpenGL render active viewport. So basically, this is going to create our video in our desired location. So if I hit here, we can see that it is creating the video on the spot. Obviously, there's not a lot of objects in the simulation, so it's pretty fast. But usually, when I run my simulations, it's kind of slow. Sometimes it takes half an hour just for one angle. And that's it. And the video has been exported to the desired file location. You can just go there and check it out. And you've just created your first earthquake simulation video. And I hope this is not too difficult for you. If you have any questions, please let me know. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to 3D view, making sure that this is saved, and that's it. Thank you so much for watching my tutorial. I hope that wasn't too long. I'm sure that you probably have so many questions right now, the same way I did when I first started using this program. Please don't hesitate to write your questions in the comment section below. I will make sure to answer all of them. Or you can just email me on my email address, which I have also written in the description below. Before I go, I want you to remember that learning should always be a fun process. Take care.